Well, thank you for asking. Some people have been asking me how I am or to update them, and I am moving out of grief into the next stage of that, which is anger. Anger's good. Anger's got energy to it. Grief doesn't have any energy. I think that I would compare this to if you've ever had any sudden surgery, emergency surgery, which I did actually almost 50 years ago. I had a near death experience, and it turned out to be a very simple thing, except that I was bleeding internally and I didn't know it because I was taking painkillers, which is why I don't take painkillers. Painkillers, is telling you something. Pain is telling you something. Pay attention. I've been in a lot of pain, not physical pain. Um, and now I'm moving to what I would call recovery. I don't have a lot of emotional energy. I still have quite a bit of physical energy, which is very fortunate. Because it was a tremendous shock, obviously. It was instant. And my dog was in the street, if you don't know, and she'd gotten out of the yard. It was less than a minute, and I was on my way to get her, and I heard a car, and she was dead. Now, I want to say this, because it's important to me. Until the moment of her being extinguished, she was living her best life. She was having fun. She never knew what pain was. She never knew what fear was. She was loved, and she was very loving. She was a real one of those love puppies. And she was a puppy. And that, I lost an older dog about 15 years ago. It took me quite a long time to recover. If you've ever had an animal that you're close to, you know what I'm talking about. It hurts in a way that you can't believe. It's not a human being. It's not that somebody said to me, well, it's not the same as if the car hit a child. And I went, no, there's no comparison, obviously. There's no comparison between. But to me, she was like a child. She was helpless. And I think that's part of it. We take care of animals our whole life. And in some way, when they die, I think we blame ourselves. I didn't take good care of it, even though the dog could be 14 or 15 or 16 years old, or the cat. I had a friend whose cat was, I think she said it was like 19 years old. And you know what? She grieved the loss of that cat as if it were a kitten. And I understand it. I do understand it. I think for me, the shock of it is that my other dog, she was getting old. She was having problems for over a year. And I was kind of like, oh, this is not going to end well. I don't think it's going to end well. You're having to face the end of life with a dog. I didn't get that opportunity, although I do have a 10-year-old who's taking a nap right now. She's actually waiting for me to take her for a while. And we have to face the end of life because time is not limitless except for the universe. And even the universe is like, when it runs out of energy, it won't exist. We don't know how we got here. Nobody knows. We have all these theories. We have theories, and we have a lot of religions. Oh my God, we have so many religions. Because it's just so overwhelming, the notion of this vastness of, the universe and a planet on which there's life, but not forever. And even the planet. The sun is burning up. So it made me think about what I'm doing here and why I'm doing it. And I thought I'm very happy that I moved to Mexico. Now listen, I'm out of the honeymoon stage of Mexico, okay? I'm out of it. Oh, look at this, isn't this lovely? Oh my God, tacos, I'm out of it. I'm like my Mexican people I've known who live in Mexico. I actually only have one or two Mexican friends who complain. They complain about the potholes. They complain about the traffic. They complain about the cost of avocados, which, by the way, right now are about 59 pesos for a kilo. A kilo is like 2.25 pounds. But 59 pesos is around $3. So that means that it's coming out at about, in US terms, $1.25 a pound. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money because the people who make good money, somebody who's an office worker making between 3 and 5 thousand pesos a week, but they might be paying, and if they have rent, they're paying between 10 and 15 thousand for their rentals. And Ensenada has gotten very expensive, and that's sort of been on my mind for what it is. It's gotten really expensive, and it's gotten very big. And it's clear that the powers that be want to turn it into a tourist. They want to turn it into another Rosarito, which is, I lived there for a while outside of that in La Misión, and it never attracted me. This is me leading up to that. I'm giving serious consideration to going south. There's a woman, I think her name is Maura Margaret, and she was a nurse in, I'm going to say Oregon. And she just left her job now. She's younger than me by like 25 years, maybe 26 years. And she got on the road and she drove through Mexico for months, for almost a year, before she found a place that she really liked in a state that the USA will say, don't go to that state. She's fine. She does videos all the time. You can go visit her because she really talks about what it's like to move from the States to here. I'm past that. I'm thinking right now about going south to Mazatlan, which are the United States. No, don't go there, Sinaloa cartel. I'm telling you, you know what? The cartels are everywhere. The cartels are everywhere. They're in Tijuana, they're in Rosarito, they're in Ensenada, they're in Mexicali. They are everywhere. They're building buildings, they're building hotels, they're building duplexes. We had 2 murders in Ensenada in the last 6 months of people who tried to open a pescaderia, a fish shop. They apparently didn't ask the cartel first. Now you might go, oh my God, but I grew up in New York City and I'm old. People were shot dead in the barber shop in New York City. People were killed all the time. There were gang wars between the Irish and the Puerto Ricans in the 1950s. People were still being murdered. The mafia, my mother grew up, she called Lucky Luciano her uncle. We were not part of the mafia, as far as I know. But it's very clear that my Italian mother's family, in order to survive, my grandfather ran a bowling alley. He was an illiterate Italian peasant. My mother took a little bag, when she was 6 years old, she told me that she used to take a little paper bag of money over to her Uncle Lucky. So I grew up in New York City, and my father ran a trucking business, and he claimed he was clean. Who runs a trucking business in and out of where you have things come in from the port? Nobody runs a trucking business without dealing with the Teamsters, and maybe they're clean and lily clean now. Maybe they are, but you know what? They weren't, all right? Jimmy Hoffa, look him up. So yeah, I mean, it's in my mind, but then people live every day. Just like people in the United States are living every day with government thugs shaking them down, grabbing them off the street, ignoring their paperwork. If they, I'm a U.S. citizen, yeah, let me see it. Oh, that's a fake. Detention for you, because they get a bonus for that. By the way, I'm I'm a big fan of this kid. Maybe he's not a kid, Jesse Wells. And if you haven't seen him, check him out. He's more like people say, oh, he's like Bob Dylan. No. He's actually more like a Woody Guthrie or a Mark Twain who sings. And he's, if you haven't heard him, you will. If you haven't heard of him. So, I have to be careful because I'm still in recovery. I'm still, as I said, it's like I had an emergency surgery of something that almost killed me. Quite frankly, I really did. I thought it probably would be better to just die there on the street outside my house than to get up. But being alive, you have the obligation. You really do, unless there's, and I understand that there's some serious reasons people want to do euthanasia. I do. And I've known 3 men who killed themselves. Phil Oakes, Tony Lucas, and Robin Williams. 3 men that I knew, 2 of whom I dated. And The two killed themselves. But two of them killed themselves because they had what they thought was an incurable disease. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But it wasn't. It wasn't going to be, you know, peaches and ice cream, and it hadn't been for them. And one had just been depressed his entire life. He just published another book. He was a Pulitzer Prize-winning author. So I do. I was going to say respect the decision, but I think I respect the decision for me to go on. I will tell you why it was so difficult for me. As many of you know, I'm in my middle 80s. Thank you. And I am mobile. Thank you. And I can drive and live alone for now. But nobody knows what's going to happen. If I were in a car accident, nobody knows. My issue is cholesterol, and it used to be my veins, arterial something or other sclerosis, what we used to call hardening of the arteries. But actually, by changing my diet, and I'm no longer considered at risk for that. My only risk that always comes in on my lab reports, since my lab reports always show, like, you know, my LDLs are like 48, you know, they're really good, which is the ones you want to watch out for. And, you know, the sugar, the kidney, everything so far is fine. But I'm 85. So it always comes in that, like, I'm on 2.4 out of a risk of 5 of having a heart cardiac issue. I said, yeah, because of my age. I'm at the age where they don't try and cure you anymore unless you're in a lot of pain. And they go, you know, because trying to cure us could kill us. Like if you have, you know. I'm wondering, you know what I'm hoping for, and I would do this slowly. I'm really hoping that well, first of all, I'm going to take my time. Okay, I don't think I'm going to try and do this before June or July, possibly before September. And I'm going to take a road trip south on Baja California. Baja California runs 1,000 miles. And then if you want to go over the mainland, you have to take a ferry to the mainland, which is Mazatlán, and then you would go down to, if you wanted to go to Puerto Vallarta or any of those other places. And Cabo is on this side, but all these places like Cabo San Lucas, they, you know, they really become high-end tourist places. And I already live in a city just, you know, I'm only 10 miles from the tourist center. And what I liked about it was the park and that we had a cultural center up there and a museum. But I don't go out at night. I don't like to drive after dark, as many people my age don't. I had, you know, the surgery that helps you see again. Cataract surgery a bunch of years ago. And they don't have to warn you about this, but you have the unbelievable amount of glare at night from headlights. I mean, you're just like, wow. So people, anybody who's had a cataract surgery, we don't drive after dark. We just don't drive after dark. So that's my plan, to turn the unit I'm in now, the flower cottage. You know, I had a muralist come in and paint huge flowers on the outside. We're finishing up doing things here. Screen doors, just making it. I've done rentals. I had my last house at the beach. I did an Airbnb rentals with that. And that's the solution for this place. I have to find and want to find a place where expats are welcoming. Other thing is, I'm not religious, as we all may have gained right now, but I am spiritual. And there are the churches in Ensenada, first of all, except for the really heavy duty, I'm not going to name them, you know, you're a sinner, the ones that think Halloween is, you know, a pagan holiday, that you're committing sins, you know, I'm not one of those. I was involved in what we call spiritual or New Age churches, which are respect. You know what they are? They're a combination of Western and Eastern religions and philosophies. That's exactly what a New Age church is. It's not like incense burning and blah, I don't know. Although I think they do burn incense. Well, the church burns. there's two, La Paz and I'm not so sure about La Paz, but Maslatan, they have at least two churches, a Catholic church and a Protestant church, that do English language services. And then they have a sort of a mission church, and I don't know, it sounded a little bit like, and I've actually was brought up Catholic, obviously, not a good one. And my aunts, they all had a sense of humor when the contraceptive pill came along and you weren't supposed to take it. They said, well, we take it with holy water because they used to keep holy water in the house. So yeah, we were pick and choose Catholics. That works for me. That doesn't work for me. That works for me. And Easter, Palm Sunday was yesterday, two days ago. It's the other thing about when you get older. For us, being older is like being a child in a certain way in terms of time. Children have ask a kid, ask a 5-year-old what day it is. They don't know. They don't keep track of time. They're children. Adults have to keep track of time. And when you're older, when you get to be about 65, if you haven't been keeping track of time, you start then. I'm not keeping track of time, but I need to be in a place where there's good hospitals and where I can meet other people that speak English, because despite my best efforts and studying, I will never be a conversationalist in Spanish. I can speak. I went and got my driver's license last week and renewed my car registration by myself, and I managed, and they were asking me questions. I'm going, what? First, they were asking me, how tall are you? How high? I was like, what? That was not in my vocabulary of my height, my vocabulary. So I translated it on my phone to the elevation, medium. But I need to have some sort of safety net, because my one neighbor who drove me to the veterinarian when we took my dog's body there so she could be cremated so I could keep her, I never thought I would be one of those people. I am one of those people. I have a little memorial for her, and it's a consolation. It's a consolation, which I hadn't thought about, and I didn't do for my first dog. My neighbors, including the one I'm friends with who speaks English fluently, she works in a hotel, are all Mexican. And Mexicans have their own families. Mexicans hang out with each other. They have parties with their families and with people they grew up with. I understand that. My mother was Italian. That's the kind of family I came from. I don't recall ever having anybody inviting friends from outside to these gatherings, which were not particularly special gatherings. Somebody's birthday, or for the holidays, or somebody got a bonus and we're going to celebrate that. And that, I think, is the benefit of an expat community. However, I never really liked the communities I was in. They felt too much to me like over 55 suburban communities in the United States. And certain kinds of people just live there. And I am a creative person, a writer, and an artist. I have learned to live with you non-creatives, okay? I have. But sometimes it really pushes me. But I live outside of a major city and a U.S. city. And I'm very grateful to be here for so many reasons. You know that it's far more affordable. Can you really think, if you're in the United States, oh, this isn't working out for me, or I had a very bad experience, I want to go to another state? I could do that. I could do that. So this is a very long one. Thank you for popping over. And, let me hear from you in the comments. And also, if you want to rent this place, it's 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, has a beautiful enclosed yard, and it's in a safe for your things and you neighborhoods. In terms of, I think there's been a robbery on this place like 10 years ago, because a lot of people live at our home. There's some older people, and then we have children on this block too. So it's not one of those nobody ever sees each other. Doesn't mean you're going to be friends, but it does mean that you can say hello. And if you speak a little Spanish, you can say more than hello.